Bombvoyage, also known as Superb Pedro on Twitter, they've made a name for themselves in the past year within furry. Some say it's for good reasons, however most say it's for bad reasons, especially when confronted for some of his behaviorisms. Some of his actions, whether it be holding a prop gun in a con space, trying to instigate people on Twitter by taking on the fuck the haters mentality, or even in the most recent case, pushing the envelope with what is allowed in a code of conduct for a con, holding a prop inflatable Tommy gun, as a result being confronted by con staff about the issue and about some of the reports coming in, being argued with by Bombvoyage and being live streamed to his Twitter account, and then as a result, him getting banned from the con and escorted out by security. My name is Beta, and today I want to talk about the most recent and hopefully the last incident involving the most notorious furry cosplayer, Bombvoyage. If you don't know Bombvoyage or Superb Pedro, they've built up a name for themselves by cosplaying as the character that had very minimal screen time from The Incredibles, and Superb Pedro built a name for himself by just going around furry conventions as this cosplayed character. The cosplay is pretty good, and their vibes at first seemed very friendly, very forward, and very chaotic. I mean, based on what they tried to do at FWA, but it didn't end up being the last of it, and here we are a few months later talking about probably the biggest and most recent incident involving him being banned at Further Confusion 2025, a furry convention that takes place in San Jose, California. Furries either love or hate the Bombvoyage cosplayer. I'd argue now a lot more furries are not too keen about him. More specifically with his actions leading up till now, and especially with the live stream that he had currently on Twitter, in which he had some sort of breakdown live streaming his confrontation with con staff at FC, and how he went on to be banned from the con because of his, I guess, instigation towards con staff, along with breaking the code of conduct with having a prop firearm in the con space, in which after that he went on to say all sorts of colorful and just, not great things about furries, about the community that, he really wanted to be a part of, supposedly. There is a lot to go through with this, and I know we have to sort of backtrack and talk about the original happenings, which if you're not knowledgeable about Bombvoyage, I highly recommend you check out the two videos linked in the description below, where I talked about the first big event involving him, where he held up a prop gun on the Sunday night of FWA 2024, and ended up pointing said prop gun a few times jokingly towards the crowd of people who were cheering him on. FWA put out a statement about their code of conduct with prop weaponry, with it needing to be cleared by con staff or just not allowed at all. But in the case of Bombvoyage, the prop weapon was cleared by con staff. They ended up apologizing for pointing at the crowd. At the end of that incident, some people were a fan of him because of the vibes or energy that he brought to the con itself, and some just weren't a fan of him. They weren't a fan of that energy of even bringing a prop gun to a furry convention, knowing furry is kind of, to some extent, filled with what some people would say is minorities in the sense of LGBT community, people who have been targeted with hate crimes, with threats of violence, with threats of their safety, and having someone show up with a prop gun, even jokingly, it's not necessarily a comfy vibe to be around. And so bringing a prop gun to a con, I know some cons are very wishy-washy about what they allow for props or prop weaponry or prop firearms, but at least for some cons, it's starting to become a thing where they are banning any sort of prop firearm in general. That goes from Nerf guns to actual, airsoft guns. And I think personally, that might be the best approach with regards to issues or situations like this. I'm all for people cosplaying as non-furry characters. I think it adds variety to the spice of life at Furcons. Specifically, my favorite cosplayer being whoever cosplays as Velma. I love you. I actually want to find that cosplayer now. What do they go by on Twitter? I think I follow them. Calvin. I want you to know, Calvin, you made my FWA last year. After that incident, everything was fine up until Megaplex later that year. He went around the con space at Megaplex, holding up, I believe, the same prop assault rifle firearm, marked properly as being a prop, and holding it, kind of spinning in circles around the crowd, being like, look at me, I'm doing nothing wrong, you're angry at me, haha, which may or may not be the vibe that he was going for, but I believe was the vibe he was going for in Twitter posts to follow that con. A lot of the jokes that you'll end up seeing from Superb Pedro or Bombvoyage when he's under fire on social media or people are upset with him is usually along the lines of me having the best time of my life while people on Twitter lose their minds again. Which to me reads like, hey, people are gonna get angry at me, and I'm gonna live my best life, and it's funny making them angry at me. I actually did do a follow-up video with this whole happening at Megaplex and people's opinions of him shifting more towards being uncomfortable with his vibe or energy, his actions with having prop firearms in a furry convention space, where I said, I don't really care about this drama. If you have an issue with how a con is happening, with their code of conduct, with their policies, or specifically a person at the con, someone who might make you uncomfy or unsafe, go to con staff about it, talk to them about it, give your feedback in the surveys that they send after you attend the con. And I will apologize for that sentiment, because it's not that I don't care about those who are uncomfortable or very scared of those having any sort of prop, weapon, or firearm in a con space. It's more so that there are easier solutions or easier precautionary measures to take with trying to feel safe at a con, in the sense of just talking to con staff about it. And after the con, people were talking around about him, more specifically in the notorious or negative sense. They weren't a fan of his vibe or the energy that it was bringing about, especially the fuck the haters mentality. This was around the point where we saw a lot of posts from him going to either gun ranges or this, I guess, shooting event with other gun YouTubers, gun aficionados, the gun community. I didn't even know that was really a thing. With someone who I think goes by Donut Operator, people have told me that there are some mixed opinions about him. I also don't really care much for guns to begin with, besides whenever Wendigoon talks about it. Look, I love my Christian Iceberg boy. I will listen to anything he has to say and take it to heart, because he is awesome. The second incident wasn't necessarily anything big, like it was just some talkings about uncomfortability with some of his attitude or demeanor at furry conventions with regards to the whole prop gun thing. I get it might be cleared or not by the con, which I believe that prop firearm was cleared by the con, and clearly based on, a little twirly dance that he's doing around in the con space, that would explain it. But a lot of people didn't really like the insensitivity towards those feeling uncomfortable with the prop weapons in con spaces. Nothing really happened after Megaplex in August. I believe the only other instance was like someone taking a picture of him from behind while flipping him off and then posting that to Twitter, which I don't know what's this trend as well recently with furries doing the thing where they take a picture of someone from behind or out of view of them and then they flip them off. Like, not necessarily in like Pedro's defense or anything, but like, Christ, that doesn't really set a good precedent for you either. It just kind of seems like the cowardly approach. I mean, people have done that to me before, and it's really fucking funny. But the big thing that happened this last month at Further Confusion 2025 was where Bombvoyage was taken to con security, or the con staff con operations room. He was confronted by con staff and con security about some complaints about him and about him holding and carrying around an inflatable Tommy gun, which is against the code of conduct for Further Confusion. After some back and forth, he becomes a little bit more instigating of the con staff, and come to find out, he ended up live streaming the confrontation and showing off the faces of con staff and con operations to the live stream that he was doing to Twitter, which that's slimy. I hate that. And that's especially coming from me, because like, I do my absolute best whenever I'm either live streaming at a con or recording for some video at a con. I do my best to keep people's faces out of it, and if someone clearly doesn't want their face in it, I aim the camera towards me and that's it, or I just reassure them I'll cut this out in post, and I remember that. So what I want to do now is go over the entire live stream, all the key parts that you might need to know or take away from it, and talk about the incident that actually happened. So the Bombvoyage event of FC 2025 starts with him being confronted by con staff and him starting a live stream from underneath a table pointed at his face as he is being talked to by some con staff members about his behavior or interactions at the con. The reason why he even starts the live stream, from what he says, is to protect himself just in case something is said or done against him. He was supposedly pulled from a room party by con ops after not being allowed at the party, and was pulled to talk to the executive members of the convention. Originally, he wasn't welcome at, I believe, the Adventure Crew party, from what is said in the live stream. He wasn't given a reason as to why he wasn't allowed, but supposedly had the go-ahead from his friend Lucky, who was the host of the party. And you can tell from some of the dialogue in the live stream, the con staff is just clearly done with him.
I'm not supposed to attend their party, and I never even stepped foot in there or touched in there. I'm just in that party specifically, so yeah.
So I just talked with communists. They said that they knew that you were not invited to the adventure group party.
Yeah, that's what they told me. Yeah.
And they didn't want you to let you into their party because that would automatically give you access to the adventure group's party in the company. And that's the reason that they didn't want you there.
But I'm not sure why though. Why is there a reason why they didn't want me in there? Or
because they don't want you getting into the adventure group party. It's not
okay, that's fine. I won't go there. I mean, I'm morely focused in that party that I was in. I'm not.
The end of the story here is the Communist Party is not.
I mean, I just talked with the leader. His name is Lucky. You probably know him too. And he said everything's fine. And he told me it. And he's like, everything's okay. So
I don't believe you.
You can go talk to him.
The told me that you are not welcome.
Dude,
that is the end of the story.
But
do you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, but you can talk to him. Like
I can talk to him all day long.
No, seriously. I'm just trying
to enter that party. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I do.
FC was experiencing a potential shooter threat and is taken very seriously, so the con staff of FC had to deal with that. They had to talk with police, local law enforcement, and deal with trying to get that taken care of while also dealing with the con. So con staff and security as is was on high alert. Someone in the room goes on to say that con staffers spent 16 hours talking to police and the convention space to ensure the con was safe after the shooter threat, and that Bombvoyage carrying the inflatable Tommy gun or the prop firearm around the con space was against the code of conduct for the con. If you go to the Further Confusion website under the code of conduct and policies in the weapons category, it says, no firearms, replicas, or lookalikes of any type are allowed in the convention center or any of the hotels. This ban includes airsoft guns, foam replicas, toy-like Nerf guns, or statues. He may or may not have known about the shooter threat at the con too, because regardless of that, he still argued about not causing any problems and that he had the prop firearm cleared by con staff ahead of time. So reasonably, from Pedro's perspective, he had that prop weapon cleared, but then was brought to con staff for having that weapon despite it being cleared. So in the end, it might have been some miscommunication or misplay on FC's part, because from what I'm assuming, maybe whoever cleared the weapon didn't actually know about that code of conduct for FC, and that they were still giving him a chance, and they were just trying to talk to him about pretty much what was going on. And that the con staffer he was talking to, I believe it was one of the executive members, was giving him a second warning. They said if another complaint comes in, that's it. As of that point, they weren't kicking him out. That is what they said. And they threatened to pull his badge if he continued to misconduct himself. And pretty much it resulted in just bickering, arguing back and forth for no apparent reason. Like, if you're clearly being given a second chance and you're just being given a warning, then yeah, you know, like, take it on the cheek and go back to what you're doing, but be mindful of what you were told too. But what ended up happening was Bombvoyage kept arguing. Dude, you're already being given a chance. Why are you, like, making this worse? Don't keep arguing. It's just not really leading to anything. And clearly, con staffers were getting frustrated with the constant arguing, and that was when it was revealed that Pedro was live streaming the whole confrontation in the con operations room, which is usually off limits to be recorded, and most people don't want to be filmed without knowing. I'll talk about that argument that he makes later, because he does it a bunch and usually uses it in a way to offset a lot of the blame that is put on him. He goes on to say that the situation is discriminatory towards him and that he is experiencing a lot of the hate that he is because of the cosplay. I don't think it has much to do with the cosplay, like at all. Like, I'd like to argue necessarily, and usually this isn't what is taken into account for those that are self-reflective. Maybe it's the personality. Honestly, watching this live stream really, like, frustrated me because this is just, it's so dumb. Like, I was honestly expecting at that point him to just, like, wipe off, like, the face makeup and put on his, like, regular outfit and be like, oh, I am not Bombvoyage anymore. I am just Superb Pedro. You cannot hold me accountable for the actions. Bombvoyage isn't here anymore. But the staffers say they'll leave him alone unless he does something or acts out of conduct. They also go on to say that they suspect that he's pushing the envelope and trying to get a response or reaction, because it wasn't really explained why he needed a prop weapon to begin with when going around cons. Bombvoyage, the character in Incredibles, doesn't use or carry a gun. He just has, like, the little bombs or something on him. Why does Bombvoyage the cosplayer need to carry around a prop firearm? And here's what he had to say about it on Twitter. After the FWA incident, I just went with the idea of him using weapons. He doesn't have that much screen time, so nobody knows. The whole purpose of the inflatable gun was to show how fragile people can be on the internet on their computer screens versus being there IRL. You get it guys? You get the joke? It's just to piss off the fragile people. That's the whole purpose. Which, like, that pisses me off even more. So yeah, the reason for him carrying around the inflatable weapon at FC was because fragile people on Twitter were upset with him. Which, to some extent, I get the sentiment of, like, people on Twitter being different from people who go to furry conventions IRL, like the vibe that you experience between people who are very toxic and vile on Twitter is different from people who go to conventions and interact with IRL. I understand that sentiment, but when you base your actions off of trying to get to fragile people, supposedly, that's not a good look. That means you're just trying to piss people off. I don't like that. Sometimes you gotta not listen to unreasonable people. Like my sort of idea with it, I ended up having an event where at FWA, I couldn't say hi to someone because I was overheating and I needed to get to the Headless Lounge. I'm like, hey, come find me later. Very sorry for now, I need to go here. After the con, the individual ended up putting a beware out on me for being a horrible, shitty person because I didn't say hi to their friend at the con. This is one of those cases where I still felt bad at the end of the day because I really wanted to do my best for them. But I also understand it's unreasonable for me to really deeply take that into account and just gotta focus on me. That's it, you know? After a lot of arguing back and forth and Bombvoyage revealing that he was live streaming the confrontation without anyone knowing, they ended up pulling his badge for the con and kicked him out, banning him for that year. Bombvoyage argues that him being banned from the con sets a precedent for other cosplayers in the sense that it makes them fear wanting to cosplay at a furry convention, which I don't even have anything to say, I just have something to act about this. That's what I feel like is going on with this whole thing, just everything, just going right over his head. No self-reflection. After they say his badge is being revoked, he points the camera to the con staff while live streaming, and from there waves and interacts with the live stream going on Twitter, which at that point I believe had around 1,000 people watching. You can even hear in the back some con staffers say that there are other incidents that are being taken care of, like an open bottle in the stairway at a convention, but the staffers also say he's welcome to submit an appeal for the next year of him being banned from the con. Eventually, the patience runs out and he's escorted off of the con premises, yelling at people nearby saying that he's getting banned from the con, trying to cause a ruckus or scene about it. The staffers said they weren't going to ban them if they weren't live streaming, and that the reason why they did was that because Pedro betrayed their trust. He requests a refund for his badge, and they go to get him a refund. They go to get it taken care of because they don't want to deal with him anymore. At least that's what it seems like. We just want to be done with this guy. So, like, let's just give him his refund and just go. Like, I can't blame them at this point. That's annoying as fuck, especially someone who's live streaming the whole thing who clearly won't stop. I think the big thing that I'm understanding about this is just the insensitivity that is going on with it all. It just seems like he's so insensitive about other people, whether that's those who are concerned for their safety because of prop weapons or prop guns in a furry convention space, whether he has no concern for con staff members who are just trying to do their job, or no concern for those that might be upset at him for his actions. But that's just, again, my presumption, so leave that in the air as you will. Take that with a grain of salt. But after a lot of back and forth, they end up eventually doing the refund. He goes on to say that the inflatable gun wasn't his, but also says in a post that it was cleared by con ops. He says that the reason for him being banned could be targeting, it could be discrimination. As he's being escorted out, he's yelling about it to other passerbys or attendees around the con, saying he's being escorted out for doing nothing wrong, and just making a lot of noise about it, which again isn't a good look. After he's escorted outside, he just keeps going on and ranting. It's about the same stuff, and a couple of friends of his follow him along back to, I believe, the Airbnb where they were going to stay at. As someone was walking into the convention space, he complained to them that he was banned, and the dude was based, and he's like, I don't know, dude, that's your fucking problem. And then Bombvoyage decides to call him the R slur. Very classy, again. And at that point, he's streaming to over 1,500 people, and still going on. He's holding the phone, going about, ranting on, and his friends are following him around, some of which are trying to get him to end the live stream and just to calm down and relax, which doesn't happen. He keeps going, and there are a couple of very interesting quotes that happen from it. To some extent, he's trying to create an echo chamber with passerby attendees. His eyes also appear bloodshot or not clear, so supposedly or possibly he might have been intoxicated at the time. He says he might sue the con or do a complaint. He says this case is discrimination because he's cosplaying as a non-furry character. Other passerbys end up saying hi to him as he continues to rant about the situation. He also says at some point he's like, French Gandhi. Don't know why that happened, like, at all. He also says he's not coming back. He calls furries the F-slur or the con. Can't tell which one he's referring to. He ends up flipping off the con space on his stream. Some people with him are trying to talk him down to leave or to stop the stream, but he doesn't. He continues to rant and swear about the con, mentions that over 2,000 people are watching. His friend's supposedly staying with him and won't leave him alone. He says, and I quote, "How am I a danger to all these fucking He goes on to rant about being flabbergasted at being banned over an inflatable. He eventually got his refund. He says he can't end the live stream. I gotta tell them. When you have all these eyes looking up at you, it fucks you up. Then turn it off, one of his friends says. He follows up saying, I can't. At least from my perspective, it seems like he just doesn't want to be a furry to begin with. Now, it's not to say you can't be a furry to enjoy the furry hobby, per se, but based on his attitude, his demeanor, even if it is him having a bad night, it just seems like he didn't ever really want to participate in the community, especially if he's just so ready to insult them. Like, this is just not a good look at all, and it's so weird to see that some furries are still, like, supportive of this. Like, dude, he literally called you the F-slur and R-slur. This is how he feels about you guys. And you're just like, oh yeah, I love and adore Bombvoyage. He's sticking it to the man. He's pushing the boundaries of what is allowed or not allowed at a con. And I'm like, oh, he also starts the I stand with Pedro hashtag or trend, or just the justice for Pedro, which don't know why that's needed. He says that at FWA, the con staff said he did nothing wrong based on the con guidelines. He says it makes the community look really bad for banning him, and rants on for another few minutes. I mean, this live stream is just a whole hour of him just kind of ranting and arguing. At some point, he reaches around 4,000 people watching his breakdown on live stream, in which he goes on to say he's a little bit intoxicated, 40 minutes in, rants about being doxxed. He says he'll live on and make the world smile as his purpose, and that's what he's going to do right now. Really, insulting an entire community that you have gone out of your way to go to multiple conventions of, saying that you're going to make the world smile. And that's what I don't get too. He says that his purpose and that his drive to do what he does is to make people smile. But at the same time, his approach and a lot of the same jokes that he does is a lot of, oh, I'm making people angry on Twitter. This is awesome. This is great. I'm gonna flex this. Like, I don't get how you can do both of those. Like, you relish in pissing people off on Twitter, whether reasonable or not, but also you want to make people smile. And I don't get that. It sounds so contradictory. Oh, and this is great. He also claims that he was mistreated like the 1930s shit, like the civil rights movement. What the fuck does that mean? He then says he's never going back to FC, and from the controversy in posts, it was bound to happen, he says. He starts to break down a little, doesn't make any money, wants to leave a legacy before his liver gives up, and pretty much it's just him breaking down near the end and then ending the live stream. He also ends it by saying he might put down the bombs or the cosplay from here on out, which, hey, might be the best idea in the end if this is what it's resulting in. But that was pretty much the live stream. What happened after that? Well, Pedro went on to make a post about his experience at FC and how he was banned from the con, saying, I go to FC as Bombvoyage. Inflates a toy Tommy machine gun and cleared by security. Con staff tells me I'm banned for no reason. Person doing drugs, sexual assault in hotel rooms, other important problems. Cosplaying Disney villain as a main safety issue. What a joke. And the picture he posted with it is him with the inflatable Tommy gun. I'll never forget the mistreatment of this petty convention and the people administrating it. I hope everyone sees the mistreatment to cosplayers like me for absolutely violating no law or person, the most ultimate discrimination based off of publicity and greed. I don't know what that second part means about publicity and greed, and in the end, furry Twitter just kinda ended up clowning on him. I love how during the live stream too, he ended up, I guess, titling or captioning his live stream, Con Staff Confronting Bombvoyage. And that's what kind of leads me to believe if this was done for a safety precaution, I would get my phone out like immediately. I wouldn't take the time to fucking label the live stream or label what I'm doing. The act of live streaming this to begin with doesn't set a good tone, or at least in my eyes, a genuine tone for what the approach is here. For the approach being safety. There have been some interesting concerns about Bombvoyage with his intentions with wanting to participate in furry, in that he just is trying to take advantage of the welcomeness and the fame that he has from the moment of him just going to these furry conventions. And there are a couple of reasons for why people, mainly furries, think this. One, he follows absolutely zero furries on his social media. But the thing with furry is when you want to participate in the community or join it or enjoy furry for what it is, there's something particularly about it that you enjoy with it. And usually that's some aspect of the community that's already there, and usually that's someone. He just kind of shows up, goes to parties, drinks, and then makes his appearance, and that's it. I haven't seen him bring up any, I guess, lingering issues in the community, trying to make it a better place. He says he wants to make people smile, but at the same time, he continues to bash and insult furries for being soft or fragile. And the only real interaction that seems to be is when he is put on the spotlight, whether that's because he did a big bad or because people are talking about him. If you go to the post and see all the quote retweets and replies, it is just furries bashing him for trying to play victim in a situation that many agree he kinda instigated. And I'll say it, I tried to view it at a partial standpoint, but he just kinda instigated things further, and then it resulted in all sorts of colorful words being thrown and slung towards furries. But a lot of people dunked on him and were potentially happy that he wouldn't be coming back to FC, or that he wouldn't be coming back to a furry convention in general. And I'll say it, if the behavior and attitude towards furries is exactly how he feels in that video, if that is just his true feeling about furries, I don't think he should participate in the community or go to furry conventions. That doesn't necessarily seem like the crowd he wants to be around. And that leads me to another point too. Why does he go to these conventions if he has such adverse and abhorrent feelings towards the community, towards the staff members, towards furries, calling them all sorts of slurs that normally people who don't like furries call them to begin with? And I'll spoil it now, but I'll elaborate on it later. I would argue that he is somewhat of a clout chaser, at least in the mentality of he has found success or found some reputation in what he does, so he's just trying to kind of come back to be relevant with it despite his adverse feelings to the community. He's just looking for attention at the end of the day, whether it's good or bad. And granted, I'd like to argue that he doesn't necessarily like the negative attention from the live stream and how much he laments about his situation with potentially being doxxed and people not liking him and a lot of eyes on him really affects him negatively. But either way, let's just kind of go over the timeline of tweets and interactions and things that follow from the live stream, because there's a lot more to this that actually came up because of the live stream. Now, the live stream made its rounds on Twitter, and a lot of people were just dunking on him for his weird take and for his awful behavior and treatment towards the con staff, treatment towards furries, with calling them slurs and names that you usually wouldn't hear unless it's from someone who doesn't like furries. And the traction from that live stream on Twitter actually brought about some very interesting information about Pedro's previous history in VR chat. You see, it's been talked about through the grapevine, I believe since FWA, about how supposedly in VR chat he's had some very abhorrent behavior towards furries, or just in VR chat in general, with making racist jokes, with making remarks that you shouldn't make around people, and even going as far to crash some of the instances for furality when the VR chat convention happened. There were some loose claims, but not really any proper evidence of this. But that was until SonicFox actually left some interesting little info about their previous interactions with Pedro. He quote retweeted the live stream saying, "I see lots of my friends/mutuals quote tweeting this and then I look at his tag. If this is the same superb Pedro from VR chat, then this is the same dude who called me the N-word in it, and I blocked him many years ago for that." So there's a reputable source, I'd like to argue, from someone notable in furry who had a not great, or rather racist interaction with Superb Pedro. And soon after, the evidence or videos of his racist jokes and overall abhorrent behavior in VR chat came to light. The video features Superb Pedro as, well, Bombvoyage. I don't know how long ago the video was recorded per se, but it features a very racist joke from Bombvoyage, which not only is the joke abhorrent, but like, he fucking sucks at telling it. Now, obviously, I'm not going to play the audio with it because it's just yikes. Why would you even joke about something like that? Now, despite the joke being abhorrent in nature, because it's very clearly racist, the execution on it is a 2 out of 10. It fucking sucks. Because not only does the joke not make sense, the punchline doesn't make sense, he's stuttering in between and jumping up and down, clapping like a kid on Christmas. Like, literally, he starts the joke with saying, "Before I get kicked, hear me out. This is gonna sound kinda racist, but hear me out." I love how he has to sort of backpedal and be like, "Oh, this is gonna sound kinda racist, but hear me out. Before I get kicked." Like, he has some level of self-awareness that this is scummy or fucked up, but he's gonna do it anyways. And that's why I know we're getting a little bit ahead of the point of how I feel about him. Based on his jokes, his behaviors, his interactions with furries, I think he's a shitlord. And I don't mean that in necessarily the insulting way, I mean that in the way of someone who goes into like video game lobbies and says the most abhorrent shit ever just for the sake of getting a reaction out of people, because what they're saying is so shock value and so edgy and so different, thinking that dark humor is pretty much the one way to go to get anyone to listen to you. That behavior I've seen in so many shitlords who just will say whatever they can just to get people to pay attention to them. He's very proud of it when the execution and the joke itself sucks. Like, yeah, it already has the innate trait of being racist as fuck, but it also sucks at the end of the day for a joke. Like, you can't even tell it without stuttering in between and you don't even know what you're saying near the end. So that was one clip that went around, along with several others of him acting inappropriately, making other racist remarks, making inappropriate remarks around supposedly minors, and pretty much just a lot of what we've seen before. So there's pretty clear-cut evidence, even if it is from supposedly 2-ish years ago of him in VR chat, of him being racist or just making some downright abhorrent jokes that realistically only people would say if they're trying to get a reaction out of someone. You know, regardless of whether people think it's dark humor or not, it's still shitty. You shouldn't be making those jokes unless you're trying to appeal to that crowd per se, or you're just trying to get some form of attention from anything that comes out of your mouth. And that's the way I kind of see it with the behaviorisms here. Like, there's no need to say any of this stuff. Like, furries clearly don't want this in the community, but I just don't understand how the conclusion from all that is that furries are soft and fragile and I'm trying to own them by being me. You're not owning anyone by being you, you're just being blatantly an asshole about your behavior that many people, including myself, deem to be very abhorrent and shitty. Like, I just don't get it. Like, when did the idea of self-reflection from what people are telling you, like multiple people telling you this, when did that go out the window? And why does it continue to get worse? It's starting to paint a picture that Pedro doesn't seem like he wants to support furries. And especially more in the case of his, I guess, defense for his behaviors. It's never just an apology for the sake of, oh, I did this bad thing, I'm sorry for it. It's always, I'm sorry for this, but there's so much worse that you could be focusing on than me. Like groomers in VR chat, people drinking themselves to death at cons, drug abuse at cons, sexual assault at cons, all these issues that I feel like, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, are people problems, not just furry problems specifically, that these problems are a bigger issue and should take more prominence and importance than him and his actions. Which, yes, he's right on that end, but using that as sort of the way to sugarcoat your actions or to divert blame onto something else or to divert the negative attention for your actions, it's just so, no, like it makes no sense to do that. He goes on to make a couple of other memes about it, and this came from him quote retweeting a reply from my friend Neo or TokyoZilla, where they go on to say, dude, stop fucking crying about this shit. You wanted to be in the party room so bad you got yourself banned by videotaping staff without their consent, you fucking moron. Which, yeah, I feel like that's a good basis for them being banned. It wasn't even just because of the inflatable prop gun. At the end of the day, there were many other factors to it, including previous behaviors at cons, and including other issues that cons have had to experience because of his behavior. And that's the other thing to take into account. Cons will see how other prominent individuals interact or cause other issues for cons, and will take that into account if they want that person at that con too. I also supposedly learned recently that some cons do carry a blacklist between other prominent cons, which that's interesting to know. Like certain people who are banned from one con are banned from another. That's the thing too. I don't think cons are dishing out bans left and right like it's a prominent threat for furries. Like you have to really try and to get banned and be problematic to get banned from these events. Like you can even see it in the live stream. Like if you wouldn't do anything close to what Pedro was doing, you're probably fine. And that's going to the people who say, this is why I'm not going to FC. Pedro got banned. They're just on a power trip. I'm glad that I'm not at this convention. Like, a day or so later, he makes the same joke, me having the best time of my life while making people on Twitter lose their minds again. And this was right after they ended up getting banned from the con too. So I don't know if this is a cope or them just trying to relish in people being upset with him, which I feel like the one who was upset at the end of the day more so was Pedro for being banned from the con, but maybe not for the reasons most people would. But after that, he ended up hosting this Twitter space, which I'm not exactly sure how that works per se, but he ended up having a 2.5 hour long conversation about whatever people wanted to talk about. I'll be honest, I have no plans to listen to this Twitter space, and I don't even want to try and summarize it because I know it's going to be a lot of what we've already talked about before. Like a lot of what happened could very clearly be summarized in a post or so, or like a twit longer. From one of the replies here about the Twitter space for a summary of what they've heard so far, Pedro invited neutral parties to talk to him or to ask him questions in the Twitter space, people that he would invite on, and a majority that were brought on were absolutely glazing him. And supposedly he would go on to boot them from the call and gang up on whoever ended up speaking against him. Another thing that I saw that I forgot to mention, and I really don't have any receipts or proper pictures or references for, and this was actually the reason why I wanted to do this Bombvoyage video as like the last big one. I guess somehow my For You page was for those trying to defend and support Pedro with the whole hashtag I stand with Pedro, I stand with Bombvoyage. It got to the point where people were taking pictures and screenshots of the live stream of the con staff that was confronting him, and these people were just laying into the con staffers, saying that they looked ugly or that they looked like a basement dweller, or even the richest one that I saw, someone said they looked like a predator. Which I feel like that behavior exactly fits the sort of audience around Bombvoyage. If you're going on to call them all sorts of awful things based on how they look, including a predator, that is as scummy as it can be. Why would you even say that? Which leads me to believe this is the community or the audience that Bombvoyage or Superb Pedro is garnering from what they're doing. And the common thing that I'm seeing here from Superb Pedro or Bombvoyage is a lack of accountability for any of the actions taken in the past however many years of fuck-ups or screw-ups with their cosplay or their character at cons. A day or so later, he ended up addressing very briefly the VR chat videos going around of him being racist, making racist jokes, in which he goes on to say, I apologize for my past behavior, but why does anyone care about racist jokes in VR chat when it's full of groomers and worse people? By the way, this is the person trying to expose me, in which he takes a picture of their Discord messages of them saying the N-word. First thing about this apology, it's not even a full apology. Whenever you say, I apologize, but it's not an apology. You don't really care about what your actions were or what they entailed. You're apologizing to save face. And it's not that people necessarily care about racist jokes in VR chat. They care about your behavior and your track record in trying to determine what kind of person you are and your intentions with being a part of the furry community that you have time and time again insulted, disregarded their feelings for, and you called them slurs as you were kicked out of a con. It's not the matter that the racist jokes themselves are the worst thing in the world. There probably are worse things than that in VR chat, and yes, the racist jokes are bad. But it's that portion of it that validates a lot of people's concerns with experiences that they've had with you, whether that's going into virality instances, trying to crash them, calling people slurs, calling people the N-word within the community, those who say that they're upset by your actions, you calling them soft or fragile, wanting to purposely piss people off. That doesn't sound like someone that wants to make others smile. And maybe you do want to make people smile, but it doesn't seem like the target audience here is furries. Oh, and I guess he's going to Comic-Cons now instead of furry conventions. So, I mean, I guess if those events want to tolerate that behavior, they can go for it. I mean, it probably is a bit more tolerable. And the whole point that he makes about potentially worse things existing in certain spaces, whether it's VR chat or furry conventions, and how that should be focused on more than him and his actions. One, you can focus on multiple things at the same time. Two, if you know people that are doing abhorrent actions worse than yours, why have you not said anything about it? Why is it only really being brought up whenever you're under fire or apologizing for what you're doing? Did you end up reporting the guy that you said was overdosing on alcohol at the bar at FC? Did you end up reporting or putting someone on blast for any sort of inappropriate behavior around minors? Anything like that. From the vague examples he has put out there has not been one effort or showing that they're looking to actually try and make issues like that more apparent and better that in the community. It's not exactly the defense you think it is when you say you see all sorts of these other issues, or that there are other apparent issues that can be focused on, but you yourself aren't saying anything about it either. You know, I've had decent interactions with him. He said hi to me at cons, he says he enjoys my stuff. He seemed genuine with his interactions with me, and I know plenty of people would be able to vouch for that. But at the same time, it's conflicting when you see these other experiences and their behaviorisms at cons. And again, outside of this, I'm really hoping and praying that he improves and betters himself as a person, or at least in the community that he wants to partake in. But the vibe and sort of precedent that he's set for himself, the tone, the behavior, the mentality towards furries, it doesn't seem like he wants to be a part of the community, and doesn't seem like he should. Let me put it to you this way. I used to be edgy as fuck as a kid. I did Call of Duty commentary, I said all sorts of slurs, made all sorts of jokes because it was so edgy and it was so dark humor and it got a response or a reaction out of people. That version of me would not have wanted to be a furry because he would have said the same exact things that you heard in the live stream that Pedro did. So here we are now, a few weeks or so after FC, and things seem to have, I guess, settled down with people talking about him. I think at this point, people have just kind of written him off as just don't interact or don't further try to instigate or dunk on him because it's not going to result in anything. I've written him off in the sense that I have seen all this stuff happen for the past year or so with his behaviors, with his interactions with people, and how things have kind of spiraled into where they are now, where I feel like, especially from the live stream, we've seen a lot of his true colors. I can hope that he changes for the better. I mean, I hope that with everyone, you know, it's not like, hey, you're the worst person ever and that's it and over with for you. If you're still alive and you still exist, you can have a change of heart, you can have self-reflection, and you can better yourself as a person. But right now, I am just very, very disappointed in the behavior of him, in the actions he has taken, and also just in the fan base that he has created from this and how they've been so immensely toxic towards either furries or towards con staffers that were rightful to take away his badge over breaking the code of conduct, even as is. And I don't personally think that sort of behavior and that mentality should be welcome at furry conventions or should be welcome in the furry community. So that, I believe, closes our chapter on Bombvoyage. I don't know if he's going to be coming back to another furry convention. I mean, at this point, I feel like a lot of self-reflection needs to be done if you just don't want to be problematic or don't want to have this discourse or controversy surrounding yourself going forward. And there's so much out there as is about his previous behaviors and even current behaviors that I don't think really lines up with the vibe of furry conventions. The best thing that you can do, and I know this video kind of contradicts it in nature, do not give him any attention. And that goes from this point forward, whether that's good attention or bad attention, whether you're trying to dunk on him in a quote retweet or a reply, it's still going to be traction at the end of the day. And it seems like, to some extent, he relishes in that negative attention too. If he ends up going to a con and is disruptive, report it. Talk to con staff about it. And the same thing applied from the previous instances of him, and it seems like it kinda actually had some consequences to it. And that goes for really any sort of issue at a furry convention. Just talk to con staff about it, especially if you attended the con and you got that lovely little survey asking for your feedback about how the con was that you attended. Fill those out reasonably. And hey, if you want to support a non-furry cosplayer, go and support Calvin. What's their social media? They go by Just Calzones. I love that. If you want to support a, I guess, non-furry cosplayer who goes to conventions, go and support Calvin. I'm going to leave their link in the description below if you want to go and check them out, follow them on Twitter, or support them however you can. But either way, that wraps up this chapter on Superb Pedro or Bombvoyage. So on that note, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments below. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a in-depth breakdown video of problematic people at furry conventions in the future, but I felt obligated in this sense because I've done 2 previous videos and I never discussed the actual big issue here, so that's why I wanted to do this. And also, I got way too heated seeing the con staffers be harassed and criticized and insulted because of them literally doing what is in the code of conduct for their con. And just seeing the reactions from Pedro was just so disappointing to see, and especially when I had hoped for them to improve and get better as a person. I'm still hoping they can, but that is very deterministic of their actions going forward. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to let me know in the comments. I greatly appreciate all the support, especially on videos like these where they do take a lot of time and quite frankly, they're just rough to record overall. Like this video is already 3 hours and there clearly isn't that much material for 3 hours, but you know, here we are. I don't really know what I'm going to cover next, and truthfully, I'm kind of in a bummed mood from covering all this drama and Negative Nancy stuff. I know I can just kind of step away from it, and I do, and that's why I want to maybe shift gears to something more positive. So if you have any ideas for videos you want to see me do in the future, please let me know in the comments or reach out to me separately if it's easier. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate all the love and support. Nothing really else to say besides have a good one, take care, life stay jacket, treat people like people, and that's about it. See you later, guys.